Hey, Professor Homer here. Welcome to the next part of our website layout with JLC. And we worked with our CSS to adjust some of the colors, to modify the colors through our CSS code. And we also modified some things so we could add round corners and a drop shadow on our buttons. And we, changed the background colors of the buttons, of our nav section, of our address section, of our footer section. We're going to adjust. I can still see the gray back there, so I'm going to have to change that in our, I guess that's our aside section. And again, these styles go in order that we kind of laid them out as well. So they go in order from the way we're working, kind of down and over and down. So footer's kind of at the bottom, aside's back here too. So here's the background color. So I want to put my aside color, which 718762. And hopefully that's the one, and I'll go look at it right away. Notice that I don't have to save every time I do CSS. And I think I'm seeing blue there. I think it's actually okay. So I think we're okay. If I'll go off on another section and go here. See, now it's highlighting those paragraphs. And I think, yeah, there was a little strip there of gray. So now it's showing up. We still, see, this is the problem right now. Our widths are a little bit off, and that's because we put padding in there, and our padding actually gets added to the widths, which we don't have enough room. We need room for this thing to fit up here. So we have to shorten some of these sections so they can all fit up there. And it's going to be subtracting, doing some math. We'll have to subtract from some of these areas that we have here. And by the way, these are the two paragraphs that are highlighted. I might remove some of this text. It'll just fit better if we don't. We might take like a line out of there. So I think when I go back, I'll go back to my HTML, and maybe I'll just take out a paragraph here. So let me save that. Less copy the better on home pages, believe me. So we're going to get back to our CSS, and we're going to take a look at some of our widths. And we'll start from the top. I think everything was fine with our header. Our address, we had a width, or no, we're fine with our address because that's the width of the entire body. Remember, our body, one thing I just want to point out here is in this body section. We have some properties and values. One's called margin, and it has 0 and auto. Now, like padding, you can go top, right, bottom, left. Or if you just use two values, it uses top and bottom, and it uses left and right. So the top and bottom is 0, the left and right is auto. And you might say, well, what's auto? Well, if you put a width of something like 840, which is what we did, and you give a margin of auto, what it does is it actually puts the same amount of margin on either side, regardless of how big your browser is. So what that does, you can see what it does. It allows it to center inside the browser window, and it just puts an automatic amount of margin on either side, because there is no property that says like center body. You can center text in an area, but you can't center like block elements. It just doesn't let you do it for some reason. So that's why we have that margin 0 auto, and there's the explanation right there. And we even changed our default font to be a sans serif font, starting with Calibri. And these go in order of what people may have, as it's more specific to more general. So we want to use Calibri. It's a nice kind of thin sans serif font. It comes with the Microsoft Office package. But if people don't have that, it'll default to Arial. If they don't have that, it'll use Tahoma, which actually is part of the Office package anyway. So these it would still probably default to Calibri anyway. And then if they don't have any of those, it would use just whatever the sans serif is for the system. Another version might be something like Helvetica, or even like they used to use on Macs, old Macs, they would use Geneva and some of those old Mac sans serifs. But most people have some of these Office fonts, and Arial's pretty much on every system. So if it doesn't have Calibri, it should use Arial. All right, and the background color of body is FF. That's why there's an HTML background color, which is a gray and a white. It makes our body stand out a little better. You could even put a border on the body if you want. So our heading is fine. Our address is fine. We already have a width in there. But the nav, we have an issue. We have a width of 186, and I can't remember. I think I said we're going to change it to 184. And let's do that for right now. We're going to change it to 184. And also, we have a padding. If that's the top, this is the right, this is the bottom, this is the left. The important thing is these two, 24 and 24, that adds up to 48. That gets added to our width. So that's actually like taking 184 and adding 48 to it. So what we have to do is we have to take 184, and I'll do the math right here. I'll just do the 184 and I'll minus 48, and I'll end up with 136. So we're going to have to change our nav section once we subtract 24 and 24, just the left and right. You don't have to worry about the top or the bottom, just the left and right. And I'm going to make this, change this to 136. That's going to be subtracted, and I could even put here minus the 48 pixel padding on left and right. You know, just so I know that, just so as a note to myself of where I got that value. You know, it's like, you know, I could even put, you know, 184 just so I knew what I started with. 184 minus 48. And again, I had 186 there, but I think I had meant to do 184. And whatever it is, it just has to add up to 840. So make sure you do that before you start. So that's fine for our nav. I don't think I'm going to do anything else with this for now, because I'm worried about the bigger sections, not the buttons. And I'm going to move down. Our main section was 464, which I think we said it was going to be 466. I think. I can't. I'd have to go back and watch the video. But since I'm going down on that one, I'm going to go up on this one. So it's 4, and we'll find out if it doesn't fit in there. We'll have to adjust it. So it's 466. But again, we're going to have to subtract 24 and 24. So we're going to do 466 minus 48. So we'll be left with 418. So we'll do this 418, and then if we want to put a note, you know, that it actually was 466 minus 48. And then if something's wrong, someone could look and say, hey, that's not 418. You did your math wrong or whatever. But anyway, that's what that is. So we now have our main. And if we look at this, we probably should see some changes already. We could see that that's shorter. This is shorter. Although we may have to change the width of the buttons, but actually it's fitting in now. We don't even have to change the width over here. There's our background of that section. Our background here isn't extending because it'll only extend as far as the images. So that's not something we're going to worry about right now. And there is a fix for that we can do, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. So we'll deal with this color thing later, but actually our page is pretty good, I think. What we're going to do is maybe just shorten our buttons. I don't think we have to do anything with our side. We do have a width here, but we have no padding on our side. So there's no need to subtract anything from our side. So I think we're okay. If it didn't fit, like just for example, if I just went to here and I just put in 2 more pixels, if I just put in 20, it's probably going to bump our side back down. And that's exactly what happens. Look, just by 2 pixels it bumped down. So we'll know if it doesn't fit in. So that fit in perfectly. So in order for that to fit back up there, this has to go down to 418. If it's 420, it doesn't work. And you know, because that image takes up that full space. So I'll go back and make that 418. And now everything should fit in 3 columns. And I'm just going to shorten my buttons a little bit. And those are the nav. Those are our links here. I had 130, and maybe I'll just make them 120. That's what I was starting to do anyway. And I'll see what that looks like at 120. It looks a little nicer. They're not perfectly even there. I could even adjust the padding a little bit on the left side to move over. The buttons look like they're over a little bit. I could even move the buttons over a little bit, but I don't have to. This is pretty much, you know, according to our Photoshop file of what we had. You know, it looks pretty good. Our buttons are a little bigger there. I could give a little more padding on our buttons if I want to. You know, if I want a little more vertical space on our buttons, I could go to my styles and give padding of, you know, on the top, I could go maybe 8 on the top, and whatever you do on the top, you should do on the bottom so they stay even. And maybe I'll do 8 all around, and maybe I'll do like, you know what, I'll just leave it 8. And if it is 8 all around, you could just do 8. You don't need to put 4 values if it's the same all around. And I'll see what it looks like. And now they look a little bigger. They look nice. I think that looks okay. And, you know, if we wanted to change the color of our H1. Oh, no, here it is. Main H1. This is our H1 here. It's our H1 inside of main. And there's a color here. So if we wanted to use, I think we're using the same thing as our button color. That same green, or maybe the same one as our aside. So here's the aside background color, which is this one. And I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to use it for my headline color here. I think I have the also note for 8 hex colors. They also use the pound sign. IDs use the pound sign, and hex colors use the pound sign as well. So let me see what this looks like. And there's that green color that we use there. We have a margin, I think we have a margin top in our paragraphs. That creates like a space above. We also spread out the line height. So in desktop publishing, that would be the leading, and that spreads it out, makes it a little more readable. If you want to increase that a little more, you could make it like 1.5. Sometimes I'll make it 1.5, which will look nice, depending on how much copy you have. Spreads it out, makes it a little lighter, and it looks pretty nice. So our page is looking pretty good, other than a little gap here, but that takes some fixing, so I'm not even worried about that. I think for what we're doing, I'll kind of move this or open it up a little bit. I think it looks pretty good. I'm not going to actually worry about that. There's a little trick we have to do because our background color doesn't know to go all the way down. And sometimes there are little tricks we could do to make that go all the way down. Because, you know, or we can, sometimes we even make a background image that repeats, that actually has this beige color, the white color, and the green color. So for as far as down as it goes, it could actually take up that spot. That may be something we do later, but for now, I think we're okay. I think we did everything we had to do for our first little attempt at working with CSS and working with our HTML. Again, just to review, if we look at our page in our browser that we're looking here, and we'd have to save everything, is we put in our image that we got from our original web page comp. We put in our aside pics. We modified the colors of our address and footer to be like our Photoshop. We put in real HTML text. We put in buttons that are made with CSS. So these aren't images. So this is a real lightweight page, real flexible. And it looks nice. And we have drop shadows and borders and all that nice stuff that Photoshop. I didn't change my hover color. Let me change my hover color real quick just to finish this off. I'll go to my hover color in Nav. And here's my hover color. It's gray right now. And I'm actually going to just check my background color from I'll just use the same one from my buttons. I'll copy that and put it in the hover color. You might say, well, why do you want to copy that? Well, that way I could take a variation of it. So I can right click on here and do quick edit. And I could just move it up a little and just give a kind of lighter variation of it. Close this up. And then when I go back here and I hover over, now I got kind of a light green. So it's in the same color family as the background color. And then you could use different color, same color. You can make text change color. You could do all kinds of things with CSS. It's a real powerful kind of scripting language. But I'm going to go back to brackets. I'll make sure that I save my CSS file. I'll go to my index file, make sure I save that. I could close both of them, and I could open them up in a browser anytime and check them out. Now we made an actual web page from our Photoshop file that we started. And all you would need to do now is just learn about all this CSS stuff, in addition to some of the HTML, which you may know already. Okay, so that's the end of Project 2. Curious to see what yours looks like.